In the 1870s, there was another small-time operation with a steam-powered portable sawmill near this town of Mather Station. Darius Goodyear and his son Charles had just purchased the mill and some of the land holdings of John Mather. They owned land in Juneau, Monroe, and Jackson counties. It would be the Goodyears who would be credited with solving the dilemma created by the Big Swamp. In 1881, after logging off their property near Mather Station, the Goodyears moved 3.5 miles northwest to the edge of the Big Swamp. There they constructed their first permanent sawmill at Chaplin. The mill was located in a flat, swampy area, making it possible for the Goodyears to use 3 methods of log transportation: one common, one rare, and one unique. The common method was the use of horses and sleighs. Sleighs worked well in the winter months if the weather cooperated by being cold enough to freeze the swamps and wet enough to have a good blanket of snow. The rare method used by the Goodyears was tramways. These tramways were like railroad tracks, only they used small logs about 8 inches in diameter for the rails. These logs were laid fairly parallel to each other, about 5 feet apart, and could be laid out into the woods wherever their trees were being cut. The wagon's concave wheels could slide in or out or float on its axles to compensate for the less than perfectly parallel logs. The wagons were loaded with logs and pulled to the mill by horse or oxen. Notice the concave wheels under this wagon. While those 2 methods worked well for the timber that was close to the mill and on high ground, much of the Goodyear's timber was located some 5 to 10 miles in a northerly direction across the Big Swamp. How the Goodyears solved the problem of getting their logs across the swamp was probably unique to Wisconsin, in that they used a network of canals. 20 miles or more of these 3 or 4 foot wide canals were hand dug through the sphagnum and tamarack swamps. 4 small, low-profile dams on the canals still existed in 1993. These were apparently developed to keep water levels deep enough to float the logs through the canals. The dams were made with a wooden water level control structure and were approximately 6 feet wide and flanked by low earthen dikes. While the pine on some smaller islands like Drescher and Bear Bluff would have been easily harvested and skidded to the canals, the main upland stands of pine would have required very long skids just to get to the canal system. Once the logs were skidded to the canal, it would have taken a slow, labor-intensive pull to the sawmill. The canal's northern end was over 8 miles from the sawmill, which could have required about a 4-hour pull. As ingenious as the canals were, they were too slow and restricted. The dilemma remained: how could the Big Swamp pine be harvested in an economical